Krishna. Welcome. Thank you all for coming. You got it. Last day of June 16.
Oh, no more Sweet 16 after today.
Sorry, 17.
Yeah, be careful, 17. Things start going weird.
What does that mean?
I'm saying, what kind of weird things happen at 17? My life. That's when I turned
Tomorrow,
weird.
Prashadam is before.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a little weak again. I guess she'll send something.
I don't think she would.
Well, we'll have prasadam after also for those who come, but there's going to be very few. In case someone comes, there'll be something.
Oh, okay.
We can make them a plate from the restaurant, but
Yeah, I just don't think everyone knows about this stuff before.
most people I think do that we've texted. Yeah.
They probably just want to fire about it.
Yeah.
What's your mom's cooking? What's she making?
Sabji. Rice is a sabji. Maybe pizza. They
So-
might do cashier pizza. Cake. Maybe gulab jamun, maybe rasta. I'm not sure. But there's a lot of spinach in the fridge, so I can assume probably paneer paneer. And then there might be some vegan sabji, like, aloo, green beans, and tofu maybe, for people who don't. And then there might be some meat paneer. And then rice, but maybe full of rice. Interesting.
And when do you do the Bhagavad Gita sloka thing? Is that this weekend?
Oh,
In Phoenix?
in Phoenix? That's on Sunday.
Sunday? Oh,
Sunday
Sunday.
morning.
Okay.
Are you going?
No, I know. Your mom was just telling me about it.
Oh.
What's that?
Ambar Mataji has like her class with the kids, the Bhagavad Gita class every Sunday. And for Gita Jayanti, she all has us present a concept from the Gita or chapter. And we're doing it on Sunday because everyone has went to their time. So I won't be here Sunday. But maybe I'll be here.
You're giving it like a presentation there.
Okay. I think we're on verse 26, chapter 8. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Guru Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Utapadakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Sri Rupam Shagadatam Sahagana Ragana Tanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitams Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Visubhana Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarabhischa Kripasindhibhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mareka Bando Mat Sangin Mad Guru Man Mahadana Mad Nistaraka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostate Sadhu Sadhu Tadaya Nati Nicho Tatakara Hanamucha Karachin Man Premno Hatkatayos Paraha Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Maskita Naram Chavinatram Devyam Saraswatim Vyasam Vidavjayam Madhirayet Nasta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Udamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Satam Prasangam Mamavirya Samviro Bhavanti Hritkarna Rasayana Kataha Yes Josanata Sabavarga Vartmani Shada Ratir Bhakti Anu Kramishyati. So we're hearing the prayers of Queen Kunti. We went over this Vipada Shantita Shashvat Tatra Tatra Jagadguru. Bhavado Darshanam Yatsyara Punar Bhavadarshanam. This is Queen Kunti praying for calamity to come again upon her. Now we're in the very famous verse 26. It's very Important verse, worth memorizing. Janmaishvarya Shuta Shribir Edamanamadappaman Naivarthat Yabadatum Vai Twam Akinchana Gotaram. Someone can read the translation.
My Lord, your lordship can be easily approached, but only by those who are maturely exhausted. One who is on the path of mature progress, trying to prove himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feeling.
So, it is a very nice purport. One of the points Prabhupada makes is a helpless man can feelingly utter the holy name of the Lord, whereas a man who utters the same holy name in great material satisfaction cannot be so sincere. Prabhupada makes a few nice points in his purport. He says, actually, the whole Lord's holy name has such powerful potency, but there is a quality to such utterances also. It depends on the quality of feeling. So that's important to point that the holy name is so powerful, but there's a quality to such utterances. So although the holy name is unlimitedly powerful, in order for it to work effectively, you have to have that potency behind it. And that's why we practice renunciation. Because renunciation will give one determination, and renunciation will give one the power of feelingly saying the holy name of the Lord. Because the Lord is not approached by one who has janma, high birth, high parentage. So in other words, if someone is born in a devotee family, born from a Brahmana family, whatever it may be, that's not a guarantee that they're going to be able to become advanced in spiritual life. Janmaishvarya, your opulences, they don't necessarily make you qualified for chanting the holy name in pure affection, approaching Krishna. Aishvarya can mean different types of Aishvarya. That's the opulences. So one can be beautiful, one can be wealthy, one can be strong, very intelligent, very renounced even, very famous.
Can you clarify one thing for me that sometimes I hear, and maybe Prabhupada said this, that if you don't are ready to go back to Godhead in this lifetime, then you'll be born into a Brahmana family or a wealthy family, sometimes it's said. But that seems to be potentially an obstacle. So
yeah, that's spoken about in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita very extensively, that the living entities are born. There's 3 options, depending on one's advancement. One is that one is born into lowest option is they're born into a family of rich aristocracy. And in that state, having enough money to be able to practice Krishna consciousness peacefully. That's the idea, that someone's not so worried about money and they can basically live to practice Krishna consciousness. And then higher than that is born into a family of brahmanas, which is also very nice. That person is surrounded by the sattvic culture and they can, become inclined toward practicing Krishna consciousness. And the highest birth is born into a family of great transcendentalists who are very rich in knowledge. And that's like the birth of someone born in a devotee family, very good devotee family like Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He gave himself as an example, and he gave his spiritual master as an example, being born into a family of great transcendentalists who are very good devotees of the Lord. It's all the good parents that are devotees, and they're also in that category of having that opportunity. So, but it is an obstacle. We don't want we don't want to do that. We want to go straight back to Krishna. And so, Vyasaki Prabhu often says, one of the reasons we're here, when you really think about why you're here, the reason is you didn't go back to Godhead in your last life. So it's a good humiliator, that you're a failure. Being here as a devotee means like, I didn't do it. I messed up. I was attracted to material energy. Right? So no matter how advanced we think we are, we're starting off from being
students coming in.
Yeah, exactly. We're starting off being, we didn't make the cut in our last life. So, therefore we should try to see our improvement. We don't ever want to think, oh, I'm going to do it because we didn't do it in our last life. So we should think, okay, maybe more serious in this life. Nice question. Did that answer your question?
Yep.
So the point is being made here that Krishna is not approached by Aishvarya. Janmaishvarya Shruta means you're learning. All your learning is not sufficient to take you back to Godhead. And Shri, your beauty. Beauty is not in itself a qualification for approaching Krishna. In fact, Queen Kunti is saying, a man with pride of high birth, opulence, education, physical beauty cannot address you with sincere feeling. But you're very easily approached by those who are Tvama, Kinchana, and Gochara, those who are destitute materially. So what does it mean to be destitute materially? Does that mean you have to go out and cut your face up and you make yourself very ugly, eat a lot of prasadam, make yourself fat, and give away all your money? That to approach Krishna? No, that's not the case, but we should understand that none of these things are ours, and that really we're not so beautiful. Lavanga used to say that the most beautiful human in the material world in the planet Earth looks like a frog to the demigods. Mm-hmm. And it's a whole illusion. The whole material beauty is an illusion. But it's very, it attracts us, and we become very puffed up because of it, thinking, oh, I'm beautiful. And so when Krishna makes someone have some, defect, it's kind of a mercy on them a lot of the time. So you're easily approached by those who are materially exhausted. So in that way, the more we become materially exhausted, it's easier to actually chant the holy name of Krishna. And there's different levels of that. If you just analyze it, you can understand that some of the mode of ignorance, they're so kind of satisfied in their own ignorance, and they're being okay with themselves that they don't really, they don't feel very enthused to chant. They're feeling like, I'm not like, going to get up and chant. I'm like feeling more like, And then someone in the mode of passion, feeling themselves very puffed up with power, they're too anxious to chant nicely. They're always, they're chanting really bad rounds. So the mode of goodness facilitates us chanting very nicely. And so a helpless man can feelingly utter the holy name, whereas a man who utters the same holy name in great material satisfaction cannot be so sincere. A materially puffed up person may utter the holy name of the Lord occasionally, but he is incapable of uttering the name in quality. Therefore, the four principles of material advancement, high parentage, good wealth, high education, attractive beauty, are, so to speak, disqualifications for progress on the path of spiritual advancement. What's that line Jesus said? He said, that's an elephant through the eye of a needle before. How does it go?
It's easier for a rich man to get into heaven than for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle.
Yeah. Jesus said like that. So practically saying it's pretty much impossible for someone who's in that consciousness of richness being able to get into heaven. Of course, if one understands that nothing belongs to them, then they're able to overcome that, just like we see about Pundrik Vidyaniti and Ambarish Maharaj, and there's many examples of exalted personalities who had all these opulences, but because of their feeling not being puffed up, they were able to approach Krishna sincerely, and they were able to achieve the mercy of Krishna. As much as a fever is an external feature of unhealth, the material covering of the pure spirit soul is an external feature as much as a fever is an external feature of an unhealthy body. The general process is to decrease the degree of fever and not to aggravate it by maltreatment. Sometimes it is seen that spiritually advanced persons become materially impoverished. This is no discouragement. On the other hand, such impoverishment is a good sign as much as falling of temperature is a good sign. The principle of life should be to decrease the degree of material intoxication, which leads one to be more and more illusioned about the aim of life. Grossly illusioned persons are quite unfit for entrance into the kingdom of God. So there's one pastime in this regard of Bhrigu Muni and a group of sages. They were attempting to understand who's the most exalted deity, Shiva, Brahma, or Vishnu. And so Bhrigu Muni went to each one and tested them. He offended Brahma in his mind by not paying proper respect. He offended Lord Shiva by insulting him. He offended Vishnu by kicking him in the chest. But Vishnu was not offended. It's understood that he was the most exalted. And in this same group of area of the Bhagavatam, the questions asked, why are Lord Shiva's devotees so much of the time they're full of material opulence, but Lord Vishnu's devotees aren't? Lord Vishnu's devotees many of the times are poor. Many of the times they don't get what they want. They don't have the type of picturesque life that is available for those devotees who are worshiping the demigods. And this is because Lord Vishnu is loving toward us. He does not provide us anything that will distract us away from Krishna. And so once you've come to a certain level of sincerity to want to go back, then Krishna will never give you what you want. He's always going to like keep it right out of your hands and frustrate you. And that's his mercy. Until a devotee is mature enough to actually be able to accept those opulences and to use them in Krishna's service. So a mature devotee does have opulence, but for a neophyte, we can understand we don't get so much opulence because we're not able to properly have it, to properly use it in Krishna's service. It's Krishna's mercy. We can be happy and be satisfied that Krishna is providing everything we need.
It makes me think of Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, like all the terrible things that happened to him, but then it created like this super intellect. He went to get a polio shot, and then they gave him a defective vaccine that caused him to get polio and debilitates one whole side of his body. And then because of that, at a fireworks show, the fireworks misfire and he can't run fast enough, so the fireworks hit him and like burn the other side of his body all the way up to his head.
I know
He
that.
falls off of a wall and completely fractures his skull. All this when he's like the first 6 years of his life. But because of all those bodily defects, he focused on his intellect and his devotional service. He had very pious parents. Yeah, it's amazing. And when he started to get academic success, his mom dies of leukemia within a year. So he had all these supposed difficulties, but it all that led him to focus on his mind.
Yeah, it's mercy. We have our own personal example here in Tucson of Lavanga Mataji. She was, such an incredibly, I think she inspired every person at this temple more than most any other devotee. She was probably she was like our guru, all of us, like our mother and our guru. And because she was so wise, yet she never complained. She never had any, she was so fixed in her service and amazing. So these, any of these things that happen to a devotee, they're actually mercy. And it's just like it's the hard to swallow medicine. We have to learn to take it nicely. Krishna will give us exactly what we need. And Krishna says, Lord Chaitanya says, I never fulfill the desires of a foolish devotee who wants me and also wants material enjoyment. He says, I never fulfill those desires. He says, I'll fulfill them in a way that makes you not want him anymore. So that's why it appears, sometimes we're wondering, it seems like ISKCON has some problems, or, devotees have problems with their families and their lives. It's like we're playing with God here, and, Krishna is pushing us all. We're all sincere. He's pushing us all to come to this higher level. So, we expect that we're going to have a material paradise in Krishna consciousness. That's kind of not so, logical if we look according to Shastra, when Shastra is saying, what devotee had a material situation that was good? Name one. There are some, but then those devotees were so advanced, like, okay, Ramananda Roy, no one can compare to him. Ambarish Maharaj, no one can compare to him. Dhruva Maharaj, yeah, okay, go to the forest for 6 months and eat only air, So, hey, Krishna, I'm chanting 16 rounds and I only occasionally eat garlic, so it's like, what can we say? We have to just accept that we're a mercy case and that we are getting that mercy of God via all the difficulties. And, in time, you start to see that is the mercy. You start to see, wow, I was getting a lot of mercy. But it's not always so pleasant. And it really forces us to take that deep shelter of Krishna. So Kunti Devi is this example. She's been through it. She's been through a horrendous kind of calamitous life. And now she's sitting in front of Krishna and she's saying, let them come again and again, because I want to see you again and again, that these calamities have brought me closer to you. And she's saying, you're not easily approached by all these opulences, but you're approached by those who are Tvama Kinchana Gochara. So, it's a reality as you go deeper in service, deeper in this stuff, it becomes more and more necessary to surrender and to feel that, wow, Krishna, I am not, worthy. I am not having a good time here in this material world, I really need to take shelter of you. So this is a very amazing verse. It's really worth memorizing this verse. This verse is so powerful. It helps us to remind us. I say this verse every day when I greet the deities. I say a lot of Queen Kunti's prayers when I greet the deities. So it really gives us a lot of inspiration to understand that, I have nothing in this world. Verse 27 is also very famous. Namo kinchana vitaya nivrita gunavrittaye atma ramaya shantaya kaivalya prataye namaha. My obeisances are unto you, who are the property of the materially impoverished. You have nothing to do with the actions and reactions of the material modes of nature. You are self-satisfied, and therefore you are the most gentle and are the master of the monists. Krishna is the most gentle. It's one of the words I love when Queen Kunti's prayer, she's saying, "Oh, most gentle one." A living being is finished as soon as there is nothing to possess. Therefore, a living being cannot be, in the real sense of the term, a renouncer. A living being renounces something for gaining something more valuable. A student sacrifices his childish proclivities to gain better education. A servant gives up his job for a better job. Similarly, a devotee renounces the material world for nothing, but for something tangible and spiritual value. Not for nothing, but for something tangible and spiritual value. Srila Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and Srila Raghunath Goswami and others gave up their worldly pomp and prosperity for the sake of the service of the Lord. They were big men in the worldly sense. The Goswamis were ministers in the government service of Bengal, and Srila Raghunath Goswami was the son of a big zamindar of his time, but they left everything to gain something superior to what they previously possessed. The devotees are generally without material prosperity, but they have very secret treasure house in the lotus feet of the Lord. There's a nice story about Srila Sanatana Goswami. This is a very famous story. He had a touchstone, and this stone was left in the pile of refuse. A needy man took it, but later on wondered why the valuable stone was kept in such a neglected place. He therefore asked Sanatana for the most valuable thing, and then he was given the holy name of the Lord. A Kanchana means one who has nothing to give materially. A factual devotee or Mahatma does not give anything material to anyone because he has already left all material assets. He can, however, deliver the supreme asset, namely the personality of Godhead, because he is the only property of a factual devotee. The touchstone of Sanatana Goswami was thrown in the rubbish, was not the property of the Goswami. Otherwise, it would not have been kept in such a place. This specific example is given for the neophyte devotees just to convince them that material hankings and spiritual advancement go ill together. Unless one is able to see everything as spiritual in relation with the Supreme Lord, one must always distinguish between spirit and matter. A spiritual master like Srila Sanatana Goswami, although personally able to see everything as spiritual, set the example for us only because we have no such spiritual vision. Advancement of material vision or material civilization is a great stumbling block for spiritual advancement. Such material advancement entangles a living being in the bondage of material body, followed by all sorts of material miseries. Such material advancement is called anartha, or things not wanted. Actually, this is so. It is in the present context of material advancement, one uses lipstick at the cost of 50 cents. And there are so many unwanted things which are products of the material conception. By delivering attention to so many unwanted things, human energy is spoiled without achievement of spiritualization, the prime necessity of human life. The attempt to reach the moon is another example of spoiling energy, because even if the moon is reached, problems of life will not be solved. The devotees of the Lord are called the Kinchanas because they have practically no material assets. Such material assets are all products of the three modes of material nature. They foil spiritual energy, and thus, the less we possess such products of material nature, the more we have a good chance for spiritual progress. This is a very long purport. Pause for a second. So, Prabhupada, the point is being made here that devotees don't own anything. Devotees are kinchana. They have none of this opulence. And so, one can think that, they're suffering, these brahmacharis, they're suffering, they're, making their life very hard, or devotees living very renounced lives, but actually they're gaining something very tangible, very real, very actual spiritual experience. And so this is the, alchemical rule. We're giving something and we're getting something. You can't avoid that law. And anytime we try to enjoy materially, there's going to be suffering that comes along with that. So Bhagavatam is, in some ways, it's kind of brutal. Of course, we're hearing about how Krishna is most gentle, but, I was reading a little of the Bible today. There's so many statements. It's like, a little bit of some cushion for like material life, But, when you read the Bhagavatam, there's nothing. It does not give you an ounce. I mean, it makes you very, very aware that it is not about anything material. It makes it very clear that, whatever you try to do to enjoy materially, it is illusion. That's why it's, the highest truth, which is reality distinguished from illusion for the benefit of all. It's completely rejecting all those cheating religions, all those kaitava dharmas, and presenting that highest truth, which is the only means to become free from that suffering. This is why, Shukadeva Goswami, he's asked the question, he hits like a thunderbolt. First thing Shukadeva Goswami says, all the materialists, they have so many things to talk about, and this is their problem. Shrotavyadini Rajrandra Ninam Shanti Sahasrasa Apashitamat Matatvam Grihesha Grihamedinam. Apashitamat Matatvam. They're blind to the absolute truth. The Grihesha Grihamedis, these Grihamedis, Shrotavya have thousands of subject matter. Shrotavya Rajrandra Ninam Santi Sahasrasa. There's thousands of subject matters in human society. And there's so many things to talk about, but Shukadeva is saying, Krishna. He says, Deha patya kalatra dishatma sanyasha satipi tesham pramato nidhanam pashinapina pashiti. That taking shelter of the body, the family, the wife, the children, the materialist becomes blind to the realization that you will die. Death is just right around the corner. And at that time, you will only have you. You will only have your mind. And that's the point we should make, is that when you're dying, when you leave your body, you won't have anybody to text. You won't have any Instagram to look at. You won't have anything to look at. You're not going to have anything to distract yourself. You're going to have to face what's right here in your heart. That's what you're going to be left with at death, is what's inside. And so if you don't become okay with that, if you don't really go in, put it all aside for a while and, go in there and fight the good fight, chant the Hare Krishna, read the books, develop that proper attitude, then you're not going to be able to distract yourself from the lust, from the anger, from the greed. And all those things are going to bring you right back to the material world. So that's why there's this element of, fearlessly and doubtlessly throw everything and chant the holy name and, bravely walk the path of Krishna consciousness. And then the Varnashram Dharma is there to, present that. Prabhupada always says, at the end of life, one should become ultimately detached. And so Bhagavatam doesn't hold any punches. It's really presenting you the highest truth. It's the truest book of the sadhus. Mayanan yena bhavena bhaktim kurvanti yedudam matkrite twaktva karmanas twaktva swajana bandavaha twaktva swajana bandavaha. Yeah. That all the great sadhus, Mayanan yena bhavena matkrite, that matkrite twaktva karmanas, these sadhus, they completely reject the mundane karmas of this world. Matkrite twaktva karmanas. Twaktva swajana bandavaha. They're also rejecting bandava, the mundane friends, and the swajana, the familial connections, for my sake. They take that. They do this. And they take a great vow. Bhaktim kurvanti yedudam. They take a great and staunch vow to practice Krishna consciousness, to serve Krishna no matter what. They take this strong vow. And in that, satam prasangam mamavirya sambhiro bhavanti hritkana rasayana kataha. They relish the Srimad Bhagavatam together. This is the real nature of a sadhu. And in that person who lives like that, tatikshava karunika, he becomes tolerant and merciful and so forth. So it's very, very intense. So is someone going to share an example of something they gave up to achieve a spiritual gift?
Yeah, all the austerities we make and there was a weird, this is like really kind of personal, but, well, I never thought that I could really practice Krishna consciousness unless I was married, because my attachment for women is too strong, and yeah, unless I found, and specifically a Krishna conscious woman. So that was like one concession that I had to make, but it's also kind of a microcosm of like Krishna consciousness. We're talking about like you have to give up all these material desires, and you have to give up all this material stuff to experience something much more profound. And I think that's how marriage is too. Like, yeah, maybe you give up these like frivolous, shallow relationships, but then you have something much more profound, much more deep and meaningful and lasting.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it's a beautiful point that Krishna is providing the means by which we can, genuinely perform devotional service in our position and purify us. It's a purifying situation. And so, our sincerity, that's the greatest austerity, that we're sincerely desiring to become a devotee. Krishna will provide what we need, whether it's tasty or not so tasty. And so, yeah, nice point. Thank you very much. Anybody else? We're just giving something up for tasting some spiritual gift.
I gave up living at home with my family, living in a place without light pollution or so much noise. I had to live at a temple in the middle of the city.
Nice. Yeah, I also gave that very same thing up. Although I don't think it was, that was more of a, it was pretty easy to give up. Yeah. Not that I miss my hometown, that was sweet, but I love my mom, my brother, but it's a hectic place. So
I just miss the quietness and the stars.
Are you up the mountains?
And the desert too. We just walk in the desert like 5 minutes away from my home.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure, you had a nice place. You were living in a very nice, beautiful place. And then now you're here at the temple. Very nice, very true. We all give up something for attaining that spiritual gift, an attachment. I have so many desires, so many callings and longings and things, but the desire to serve my spiritual master has placed me in a position where all I do is serve my spiritual master, and it's not so easy. And there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of, frustration. There's a lot of weight. Sometimes it feels very heavy, very difficult, but at the same time, be able to see people's lives transform and to see you have an effect on people and to uplift people, that to me is such a great gift. And I like what Yaneshwar Prabhu said, because Krishna will provide what we need. He'll give us like the maximum weight we can hold before we crack. That's how I feel, at least. Like if you add another pound on Krishna, I'm gonna crack. Krishna's like perfectly calculating, the amount you can hold so that you become, like super strong. And if you start to, break, Krishna says, to those who worship me with exclusive devotion, not taking shelter of anything else. We take shelter of so many things. That's the problem. People take shelter of the demigod. They take shelter of, Deha Patya Kalatradish, family, wife, children. They take shelter of these things, not as a matter of duty, but as a matter of something I'm taking shelter of. Rather than serving Krishna, I'm taking shelter of it as my means of happiness, as my means of comfort, rather than seeing it in relation to Krishna. Not that these things are bad in themselves, but when we take shelter of them and we don't take full shelter of Krishna, then we are going to incur some karma. But Krishna says, those who worship you with exclusive devotion, whether one's grihasta or brahmachari or sannyas, whatever position, that Krishna, you're my everything. Bhaktivinoda Thakur Prabhupada said, my house, my family, my friends, my children, they're all yours. O Nanda Kishore, they're all yours. So Krishna says, to those, I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. And so Krishna will give you what you lack and what you need to, serve him, and he'll maintain what you have. He won't let you struggle, but you have to develop staunch devotion to Krishna. So we'll go to the next verse. This is such a unbelievably deep section. Here are the abodes of prema. We have the unlimited wealth. I was my brother's birthday yesterday. I was over there and they were watching like a movie, and I was watching it a little bit too. And one thing about these movies is there's always like, the dramatic death scenes and characters dying, or people are scared of death, and it's always a big dramatic thing. And I always think, the devotional life ruins all the movies, because, devotees are so sober-minded about death. It's like, yeah, here it comes, whatever. That's like the last of my fears. I don't want to go through the process of painfully dying. That doesn't sound fun. But the death itself doesn't scare me or scare a devotee. And so if some person's going to kill you, it's like, and you have no control, what are you going to do? Hare Krishna. So it ruins the whole concept, because the devotee becomes fearless and they become genuinely fearless.
Funny story, quick on that note. One time, Lucky and Ryan was walking with standing in the parking lot. Somebody, they didn't see him. They started backing him out. Like, we head towards him, and he was just standing there, and they're like, "Oh my God, Maharaj, I'm so sorry." And he's like, "No, please continue. Run me over."
Yeah, devotees are not scared of death. I mean, our Guru Maharaj, he has so many beautiful stories of, facing deadly situations, and that fearlessness often, diffuses the situation. Like someone came and put a shotgun in his face when he was shooting books once and said, "I'm going to blow your GD head off." And Gurudev just looked at him and said, "No, you're not." I didn't hear a bang. And the guy was looking back, and he said, if you were going to do that, you would have done it already. Why don't you just walk on home? And Gurudev said, I just felt totally fearless because, even if you did, it doesn't matter to me. I'm doing Prabhupada's service. And the guy said, he's crazy, and then ran off. And there's so many stories of, Gurudev being in that kind of position, because there's fearlessness. So, we develop actual manliness when we become a devotee. We can become a real man, become actually fearless, be willing to do the needful. And that means even fearless spiritually too, like we're not so concerned about whether we're going to go back to Godhead. We're not so concerned, any of these things. So, Arjuna is apparently making so many offenses in the battle of Kurukshetra. He's killing Bhishma, he's killing devotees, But still, this is ultimately his service, ultimately what he has to do. And so when we have that clear understanding from good sadhana, what it is I have to do, we become fearless. And then we become able to speak the truth. And Prabhupada, he was so bold in speaking the truth. He was so responsible speaking the truth. Yeah, he was so staunch. We want to develop that. Okay, we're on verse 20. Yeah. Manye tvam kalaishana manari niranam vibhum samam charantam sarvatra bhutanam yanmita kalai. My Lord, I consider your lordship to be eternal time, the supreme controller, without beginning and end, all-pervasive one. In distributing your mercy, you are equal to everyone. Dissensions between living beings are due to social intercourse. Before you leave, Jamuna, can you read some purport?
Yes. Kunti Devi knew that he was neither the nephew nor a partner in the family member of her paternal house. She knew perfectly well that Krishna is the primeval Lord who lives in everyone's heart as a super soul, Paramatma. Another name of the Paramatma feature of the Lord is Kala, or eternal time. Eternal time is a witness of all our actions, good and bad, and thus resultant reactions are destined by him. It is no use saying that we do not know why and for what we are suffering. We may forget the misdeed for which we may suffer at this present moment, but we must remember that Paramatma is our constant companion, and therefore he knows everything, past, present, and future. And because of the Paramatma future of Lord Krishna destines all actions and reactions, he is the supreme controller also. Without his sanction, not a blade of grass can move. The living beings are given as much freedom as they deserve, and misuse of that freedom is the cause of suffering. The devotees of the Lord do not misuse their freedom, and therefore they are the good sons of the Lord. Others who misuse freedom are put into miseries destined by the eternal Kala. The Kala offers the conditioned souls both happiness and miseries. It is predestined by eternal time. As we have miseries uncalled for, so we may have happiness also without being asked, for they are all predestined by Kala. No one is therefore either an enemy or friend of the Lord. Everyone is suffering and enjoying the result of his own destiny. This destiny is made by the living beings in course of social intercourse. Everyone here wants to lord it over the material nature, and thus everyone creates his own destiny under the supervision of the Supreme Lord. He is all-pervading, and therefore he can see everyone's activities. And because the Lord has no beginning or end, he is also known as the eternal time of God.
The point we can really derive here, thank you. The point we can really derive here is that whatever we're going through, whatever position we're in, whether we find ourselves married with 10 jobs, 10 kids, whatever suffering we find ourselves go through, whether we feel ourselves somehow in the renounced order of life, we'll find ourselves in so many positions. Fact is, we have to become satisfied. We can't be hankering to change our position all the time. That's trying to satisfy things materially. Krishna consciousness is beyond all of these changing situations, and you will get exactly what you deserve. You will get the things you need, the things you require, the beauty, the women, the money, whatever it is, it'll come to you according to your karma. The devotional service is transcendental. Therefore, Krishna explains, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu, mam anusmaram yudicha, maya pritamano budhir, mameva shashisham shaya. Perform your prescribed duties while at the same time remembering, focusing on me. Let us be satisfied where we're at, but just focus on Krishna consciousness. Let whatever comes. Because whatever comes is because of our predestined, our activities in the past. And so we see that time and time again in the great devotees. They're cursed. They do make mistakes. They do, in the due course of their social interactions, the social intercourse, as Prabhupada says, offenses are made, people are upset, curses are done, karmas are accrued, and the devotees, rather than trying to solve that situation by making a material arrangement, what do? They double down on the hear and chant. They double down on the process of hearing and chanting. And so we can also learn like that everything's going to come in due course of time. We double down and hear and chant. Let me continuously tolerate the ups and downs of material existence and have hope and faith that, in the end of it all, I'm going to see Krishna. And, you just see Prabhupada. Prabhupada had so much struggle in his life, Prabhupada struggled so hard, he had a challenging family life, actually. And Prabhupada was just greatly challenged in trying to come here. But Prabhupada never gave up that service and that attachment to Krishna. And so, when Prabhupada, think about how loving Prabhupada is. It's an example I think about. Prabhupada's the most loving person we can think of, I'm assuming. So you'd imagine Prabhupada loved his family. We can imagine that. Like I know, like my Gurudev, he's so loving, And I see how his son loves him so much. Keshava really loves his father because Gurudev's such a wonderful person to be around. And he's full of love and wants to, be nice to everybody. But at the same time, circumstance will happen that, material attachments, material situations are not eternal. And so the love does not change, but that circumstance will change. And so when Prabhupada, was, rejected by his family, when Prabhupada left his family, Prabhupada wasn't like, I'm just, done. Prabhupada, I like to read, I read the Leelamrita, I like to see that part, how Prabhupada, what did he do? He actually chanted for like 3 weeks straight. He just chanted Hare Krishna for 3. He went to the ashram, and he just chanted Hare Krishna very loudly. Prabhupada was so, seemingly hurt, he was taking shelter of Krishna. And he was establishing himself in time to realize, all I have is you. And there's a poem by Prabhupada before he came to America called Vrindavan Bhajan. And you read that recently. Prabhupada, he says, Hare Krishna. He says, oh, my family, where's my mother? Where's my father? Where's my affectionate wife? Where have they all gone? Now they're just a list of names, Prabhupada says. I find myself laughing with a chuckle that I'm sitting here in Vrindavan with only you, Krishna. And so it's not easy in any case, it's not easy in any case. But the fact is that Krishna, he's going to take us home back to Godhead if we're sincere. And that means we're going to have to go through what we have to go through and face what we have to face. And not always easy. It's not always pleasant. But in the end, it becomes sweet because, Bhavato darshanam yatsyad, apuna bhava darshanam yat. We're going to see you again and again. This birth and death will finish by that. So, it's kind of like people are scared of becoming devotees. They're scared of Krishna because this is what Krishna does to people. He really, he's going to do you in. He's going to really make you, fall in love with him. So Kunti is really, she's really embodying that. And so this whole verse is about Kala, or time, and Prabhupada's saying the super soul in the heart. He is seeing everything. And so it's not that Krishna is favoring anybody. Everything's happening due to our own actions, our own activities, our own highball, our own things that we do. Everything that happens to us is because of our choices. It's our fault. We need to accept that. That's radical responsibility in terms of karma. And so when we accept that I am responsible for my actions, I'm responsible for my life, and everything that's going on here is not relevant to my connection to Krishna. Let me simply take shelter of that holy name. That's why devotional service cannot be hindered by material things. You can't give excuses. Oh, well, I don't have this, or I'm here and I'm this, and it's difficult here or that to practice my devotional service. No, we always remember Krishna. We always chant about Krishna. We always talk about Krishna. We always take shelter of Krishna no matter what. That's the key. And in that way, we can become satisfied with the austerities, with the penances as they come naturally. Because otherwise, the happiness and distress of this world are due to our own circumstances. And that's a powerful thought. On the other side of that, those who are narcissistic, they never take responsibility for their actions. It's always somebody else's fault. It's always their fault. It's always this person's fault that I'm suffering like this. And because of that, they never feel any peace. So the devotee is always thinking, I deserve much worse than this. And in that way, they purify themselves. So it's nice to realize whenever you're going through it, it's like a fire burning up all that impurity, that we can go back to Godhead. Any points on that? Hare Krishna, Shana. We're on chapter 8, text 29. We'll do a few more verses. Naveda kaschid bhagavam chikirshitam eve manasyananam vedabanam nayasya kaschid daitosti karichid devyascha yasmin vishamamatirdanam. O Lord, no one can understand your transcendental pastimes, which appear to be human and are misleading. You have no specific object of favor, nor do you have any object of envy. People only imagine that you are partial. The Lord's mercy upon fallen souls is equally distributed. He has no one as a specific object. You had that, Prabhu?
No, here.
As a specific object of hostility. The very conception of the personality of Godhead as a human being is misleading. His pastimes appear to be exactly like human beings, but actually they are transcendental without any tinge of material contamination. He is undoubtedly known as partial to his pure devotees, but in fact he is never partial, as much as the sun is never partial to anyone. By utilizing the sun's rays, sometimes even the stones become valuable, whereas a blind man cannot see the sun, although there are enough sun rays before him. Darkness and light are two opposite conceptions, but this does not mean that the sun is partial in distributing its rays. The sun rays are open to everyone, but the capacities of the receptacles differ. Foolish people think that devotional service is flattering the Lord to get special mercy. Actually, the pure devotees who are engaged in transcendental loving service of the Lord are not a mercantile community. The mercantile house renders service to someone in exchange for value. The pure devotee does not render service unto the Lord for such exchange, and therefore the full mercy of the Lord is open for him. Suffering men, needy men, inquisitive persons, or philosophers make temporary connections with the Lord to serve a particular purpose. When the purpose is served, there is no more relation with the Lord. A suffering man, if he is pious at all, prays to the Lord for his recovery. But as soon as the recovery is over, in most cases, the suffering man no longer cares to keep any connection with the Lord. The mercy of the Lord is open for him, but he is reluctant to receive it. That is the difference between a pure devotee and mixed devotee. Those who are completely against the service of the Lord are considered to be abject darkness. Those who ask for the Lord's favor only at the time of necessity are partial recipients of the mercy of the Lord, and those who are 100% engaged in the service of the Lord are full recipients of the mercy of the Lord. Such partiality in receiving the Lord's mercy is relative to the recipient and is not due to the partiality of the all-merciful Lord. So what it's saying here is that Krishna is actually available to everyone and anyone, but to our degree of, openness, how much can we accept that mercy? We have to accept it. And accepting that mercy means we're surrendering to Krishna. We're accepting that mercy. Can you be loved? That's the whole point. Can you actually accept that love and that mercy that Krishna is giving you? But out of pride, we don't want to accept it so much of the time. His mercy is equally distributed. In the battle of Kurukshetra, all persons who die in the fight before the presence of the Lord got salvation without the necessary qualifications, because death before the presence of the Lord purifies the passing soul from the effects of all sins, and therefore the dying man gets a place somewhere in the transcendental abode. Somehow or another, if someone puts himself open in the sun rays, he is sure to get the requisite benefit, both of heat and ultraviolet rays. Therefore, the conclusion is that the Lord is never partial. It is wrong for people in general to think of him as partial. So Krishna is not partial to anybody. It's not a matter of we're trying to get the Lord's favor to please the space wizard, sky wizard. That's not the whole concept of Krishna consciousness. That's kind of a very mundane level of God consciousness, and that's what Father Richard Rohr calls a very bad reward punishment system. God is not like that. Actually, God loves everybody. Krishna loves everybody, and it's not about how much our ego thinks we've done. How much have you accepted the mercy? Lord Nityananda's mercy is go and sin no more. That's the mercy of the Guru. That's really the whole message of Jesus Christ, of Nityananda Prabhu, and all of Nityananda Prabhu's representatives is go and sin no more. You are freed. Amazing grace is available to you. You're saved. You have salvation. You are saved. You are delivered. Krishna is available. That grace is there for you. That love is there for you. Simply don't turn away from him and do your best. And this is actually what Krishna is asking of us. No one's going to be perfect. No one's going to be completely 10% void of upsetting people, void of, acting, so many ways in the world. You're not going to be that way. And so if we hold ourselves to this perfect standard, we're going to suffer. We're always going to suffer. Rather, the pure devotee, Krishna explains, apichet sudaracharo bhajate mamananyabhak sadareva samantavya samyag vyavishitosa. Even if someone is sudarachara, even if someone is totally evil, apparently, or doing terrible things, if they have this bhajate mamananyabhak, they have complete faith and dedication to Krishna, that Krishna, I am yours. And, I'm not perfect. and I'm not asking for anything, but on the end of it, I'm yours. Krishna says they quickly become righteous and attain lasting peace. In other words, he delivers them. So it's not about, we shouldn't focus on, getting the mercy as much as we should focus with what are we going to do with the mercy we've received. We've got the mercy. What are we going to do with it? We're going to spread it. We're going to give to others. We're going to serve. How are we going to then live our lives like that? Because Krishna is available to everyone who's open to receiving that mercy. And that simply means that I am accepting you. There's a famous quote from the Ramayana where Lord Ram says, one who at once says, I am yours. At that point, I destroy all his sinful reactions. I never let him go. We say, I'm yours, Krishna. And we make some small effort to serve him. And then he loves us. And this is Kunti Devi's sincere prayer here. She's saying, no one can understand. Oh, she's saying, right, 29?
Yeah.
No one can understand your transcendental pastimes, which appear to be human and are so misleading. You have no specific object of favor, nor do you have any object of envy. People only imagine that you are partial. Krishna loves everybody. Krishna, Uddhava says, Aho bakiyam stanakala kutam jagam shayapaya yarapyasadvi lebegatam datkitam tatonyam kamva dayalum sharanam brajema. Oh, who can I take shelter of more merciful than he who gave the position of a mother to the she-demon who came with poison on her breast to kill the Lord? There was one guy who was coming for a while. We tried to explain that to him, and he flipped out. He became furious when we tried to tell him that Krishna is that merciful. He was like, we say, false advertising! He's like screaming. 4 things, Kirtan. You do 4 things.
Worse sin. Doesn't make any.
The worst thing! He was screaming at us. Actually, a whole car ride. He screamed at me for an entire car ride because he's really mad because he couldn't understand how that it just all it takes is the Lord's love is that great that he'll deliver even Putana. It's like she hurt children. He was like so angry because we take I've done so much austerity. I've worked so hard. And this is the nature of even all the demoniac, and not that he's demoniac, he wasn't, but that tendency to think I'm the doer is so powerful, and that I'm going to deliver myself. I'm going to earn Krishna's mercy as if what we do is enough. And this idea is faulty. It's a faulty idea. Krishna is delivering it. Krishna delivered Kamsa. Krishna delivered Putana. Krishna delivered all the demons. They got supreme liberation because of Krishna's love them. But Krishna is going to do what's right, apparently to follow Dharma. But Krishna loves everybody. And even the demons, there's so many examples in the Bhagavatam of this fact. Like Vitrasura is my favorite pastime in the Bhagavatam because I think he's the most relatable to me. Is like this demon, literally like a monster. He's like an abomination, And he was actually previously King Tritaketu, and he was this great devotee. Now he's become like an abomination. And he's like just totally terrible and furious demon. He's going to like kill the demigods and kill Indra. But Indra's going to kill him. And he like knows he's no chance of winning, but he's just like doing it. But internally, he's just thinking like, I want to go back to Godhead. And he goes back to Godhead. And this is why the verse in the 4th chapter, Krishna says, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, one who's situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, even if he's considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, can cross beyond the ocean of birth and death. So what is that transcendental knowledge? I know who I am. I know who the Lord is. And I know what our relationship is. And so sometimes we find ourselves in circumstances where we make mistakes, big mistakes. We make offenses even. In the end, we have to say, I'm yours, Krishna. Do with me what you will. If you want me to forget you, who am I to argue with that? And so we see Krishna's mercy in that Krishna delivered Jagai and Madai. Lord Nityananda delivered Jagai and Madai. They were the most sinful people. And, Madai committed the greatest offense. He threw a pot at Nityananda Prabhu's head. He drew blood from Nityananda Prabhu's head. And Lord Chaitanya was going to kill him. And Nitai, the mercy of the Guru, the mercy of that Guru taught them, Nitai just said no, and the mercy moved him. And the ultimate thing Nitai said was, go and sin no more. Like, you can end your ways. And it's not that we're just perfect right away. It's that now I'm living a life for the Lord. And so no matter what, through all the ups and downs, I'm still Krishna's, and Krishna's going to deliver me. He's going to be kind with me. He's going to be sweet with me. And that's this ultimate mercy that's available to us, that Krishna is not partial to us. Krishna loves everybody. And he'll simply, if you simply open your mind up and your heart up to him, he'll help you in every way. He'll preserve what you lack and carry what you have. And so we don't want to get caught in this kind of system of do's and don'ts, rights and wrongs, that, I got to play the game right to get the goodie. What kind of sick God is like that? That's not the way God is. That, got to make sure I do it right with all the mantras, in Krishna's Bhavagrahi Janardhan, he accepts the love. He accepts the love you're offering it, And so it's about feeling the presence. It's about being present to Krishna's love and being transformed by it. And, the rightness is that we are devoted to him. Yes, Prabhu.
But it's just interesting to me how some people get irritated with the idea of the mercy of God, that they don't want that, to see him do that, like this person that seemed to get so disturbed. And that you mentioned the go and sin no more, which in John's gospel is the woman caught in adultery. And that little text, that story of going to stone this woman, which they've pulled out of the act of adultery, and they're about to kill her, and then Jesus saves her, and then he says to her, go and sin no more. It's called an orphan text because that was never originally in John's gospel. It's clearly like forced into this chapter where it's like terminating the story in the middle of it, and then this gets shoved in, and then the story continues. And St. Augustine says it's because there were rigorous Christians in the early days that thought that story presented God as too merciful. So they kept trimming it out of the Gospels. They kept taking it out. And somewhere along the line, we don't know where, it got stuck kind of in a place that you couldn't trim it off the edges of a manuscript. It got stuck there. So that image of God could be preserved. That story could still be around today.
It's so amazing. There's another story like that, actually, in this 922, Bhagavad Gita 922. To those who worship me with exclusive devotion, for them I carry what they have, and I carry what they lack and preserve what they have. There was one Acharya in the mid-century, middle-age times, and he was writing a commentary on Bhagavad Gita. And as he was writing this commentary, he thought, this is impossible, that Krishna personally will preserve what I have and carry what I lack. And so he erased that shloka, dashed it out. And then he told his wife, he was very pious Brahmin, he told his wife, I'm going to go, for my noon bath, chant my Gayatri and so forth. And you cook food, cook prasad. So he went out for his bath. And she was thinking, I need to, go buy boga, cook. And so then two little boys knocked on the door and they said, we brought you all this food, all this nice boga, so many nice things, dahi and grains, rice, and so many nice things, dal, coconut sabjis, and coconut, coconuts for chutney. All this nice prasadam was there, all this nice boga to offer to Krishna. Thank you very much. And she said, well, please come in, please come in and sit down. You're so beautiful. And you two young boys, one of them was very dark. One of them was beautiful crystal white. I said, no, we can't. That man's going to beat us again. She said, what? She goes, your husband, he beat us. And she said, what? And they turned around. They saw that their backs were bleeding and ripped apart, and there were slashes on their backs. And so we don't want to go near your husband. We want to give this. And they ran off. And then she became very mad, her husband, he beat these children. She was very upset. So she's cooking very angrily. And then she was so upset that she began to eat prasadam. And generally the wife waits for the husband to eat, and then, they eat together. She wants to serve her husband. The husband came home and he saw that his wife was eating. He said, are you okay? Why are you, you're eating before me? This seems a little off. She said, how could you do that to these children? How could you beat these children? How could you whip them like that? And he said, what are you talking about? He says, they came, the two beautiful blackish young boy and whitish boy. They came to the door, and cowherd boys, and they gave all this food, and they said, "You beat them." And they had 2 slashes across their backs. And he knew immediately that was Krishna and Balaram. And Krishna and Balaram had, he had slashed those parts out of the Bhagavad Gita and then slashed their backs. And so the idea is that, yeah, Krishna cares for us that much. He does love us that much. And so, the mercy of God is available. And that's why, who can take shelter of one more merciful than he who delivered Putana? She was killing children. She was like a professional child murderer. That's what she did. She was a serial killer. And yet she was delivered by Krishna for offering him poison, milk. So that's Krishna's mercy. So, the idea is like, we don't do all these austerities so that we can go back to Godhead, earn our way back to Godhead. We do them out of love. We should take an austerity. We should take the vow to chant, the vow to follow principles, the vow of brahmacharya, the vow of sannyas, the vow of marriage, all of the hardships involved in these things we take up. These things are expressions of love for Krishna. That's why Krishna is Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam, that we understand that all of the yagya, all of the sacrifices, and all of the austerities we do are for Krishna. If we understand that I'm not doing this for me, I'm not doing this for mom, I'm not doing this for kids, I'm not doing this for dad, I'm not doing this for my country, I'm doing this for Krishna. When we understand that Krishna is in control of everything, and we understand that Krishna is the friend of everybody, then Prabhupada says, Krishna says, Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatamam Shantam Richati, that you can attain peace. That's the way for attaining peace. So it's not this reward punishment system. Accept that mercy, live in it, be happy, be joyful, and do our best, do what we can, try to do better. I think that's it for now. We can conclude.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that story about. I didn't know that about that. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's in none of the earliest manuscripts of John's Gospel. It doesn't show, but it was preserved in the memory of the early Christians. The story. It's never had a home, so it's called an orphan text. Yeah. It's almost exactly like.
Let me just read this